Welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I am here with Emma Cossey from the Freelance Lifestyle. Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Emma, we have been in the same circles online for quite some time. I was trying to ask you before we hit record exactly where we met. It may have been through Joe Gifford's group, but one of those groups that we're in together. And it has been such a joy getting to know you.
Oh, thank you. It's been really lovely to get to know you. And I think because we're both in quite a lot of different groups and we're both kind of online networkers a little bit, it's been really nice getting to know each other on lots of different levels, depending on the group as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I have to say, I particularly liked last May when we were both doing a 30-day video challenge together and we were watching each other's videos every day. That was really fun because then we got to see each other's pets and kids and homes and kind of all kinds of things.
Exactly. We both managed to do the 30 days, which I think you were the same as me, where we both kind of have in the past not been great about always finishing the 30-day thing, and we managed to smash it, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it was fantastic. That was the first 30-day challenge I ever finished. And I think it was because it was so fun and I was so involved with the other people involved like you.
Exactly.
But we are here to talk about the freelance lifestyle. So I would love to hear some of the history behind your own freelancing and how you decided to start this website to help other freelancers get started and figure out what they need to do, how to set things up. And you are in the UK. I'm going to say that up front in case anyone couldn't tell from Emma's accent. Emma's from the UK. So some things may be slightly different over here, but I think a lot of it is just general to the online world these days. So tell us, when did you start freelancing yourself and when did you shift that over into helping other people freelance?
So I'm coming up to my 8th anniversary of being a freelancer. And like some freelancers, I fell into it accidentally. So I left a job in HR. So I came out of university, I went and did recruitment, which I was terrible at because I'm terrible at sales calls on the phone, and then I did HR, which I'm terrible at because I've got no tact. And then I quit the HR job, partly because it was a horrible job in terms of the team that I was in. There was quite a lot of bullying and things like that went on. Ironically, being the HR department.
Yeah. If anywhere it should be taken care of, it should be taken care of in the HR department.
I know, but who do you report it to? It was a very bizarre situation. I didn't feel very self-confident. I didn't have great self-esteem at that point. And I was just looking for reception jobs nearby. And I happened to join Twitter just while I was job hunting. Saw a couple of editorial internships come up on Twitter, just from people I was following, and applied and got them both. And this was back when internships were still kind of fairly new, especially in the online media side of things. And it kind of snowballed from there. I ended up getting a long-term freelance gig as an editorial assistant for Parent Dish UK. I think you have the US version over there, but it's I think it's Yahoo. It's owned by Huffington Post now.
Cool. Were you married at the time?
No. It was very strange. I was the only non-parent on the team, but obviously now that I am a parent, it was great because I now have all this backlog of information that I've read through and researched before I even got to parenting, so it was really handy. But yeah, from there I did a whole assortment of social media jobs, editorial jobs. I had project management. Just before I had my son, I also worked for a business school teaching young people about social media and careers and how to build your career and things like that, CVs, cover letters. So it's been quite a wide range. But about 5 years ago, I realised that for new freelancers, it can be really overwhelming and there's not a lot of clear advice, especially in the UK, of how to get started. And this was kind of before the boom of all this online content now for how to become an entrepreneur and how to start a business and things like that. And I just wanted to be able to create a space that was supportive, informative, and made freelancing very much a lot more accessible, because I didn't even know what a freelancer was before I went freelance. And there's still a lot of misconceptions, especially over here in the UK, where it's not quite as big as in the US. There's a lot of misconceptions that it's people who work for free or they don't earn very much at all.
Freelancing for free.
Yeah, I mean, I did a degree in business and we were never taught about being self-employed. It was the bizarrest thing. And I feel that freelancing is something that at the moment I'm really passionate about graduates starting freelancing, but a wide range of people, women who have just come out of, they've just been on maternity leave and now they're thinking, do I go back to a job where I don't have that flexibility, or do I start to use my skills and go self-employed and have more control over what I can do, as much as you can with a child. So yeah, for the last 5 years I've had a blog, a podcast, now some online courses, and in the last year I retrained as a coach so that I can help freelancers with everything from work-life balance to bringing in new business. So that's kind of the story, I guess.
That's great. And how long have you been a parent now?
So my son's 15 months old at the moment.
Okay. Had a birthday recently. That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he's still very new to it, and he is an absolute bundle of energy, and he's really lovely. But it's interesting how your expectation before you have kids as a freelancer is very different to the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, I have to admit, I'm particularly interested in that aspect of it because I do feel like in the past when women had children and either made the decision to leave work for a while to stay home with kids, or maybe they didn't make the decision to but ended up in that situation one way or another, the options were really limited for what you could do to work from home. And now, thanks to the internet and the online entrepreneurial work for yourself boom, there are a lot more options. Have you read the book? Let's see. I was just thinking of it as you were talking before about moms who are coming out of maternity leave. It was The Feminine Mistake.
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's a really good book, and it was written by a woman whose mother gave her the feminine mystique when she was 13. Yeah. And her mother did work, but her mother's mother, her grandmother, did not. And when her grandmother was left by her grandfather for his secretary, she really had never had job skills because she'd stayed home through the whole marriage. She was married young, stayed home through the whole marriage. And out of the 3 generations, the grandmother, the mother, the daughter, the mother got married and her husband didn't want to support her mother. So she ended up getting a job to support her own mother. And in the course of all of this, talked to her daughter a lot about never giving up your earning potential. Like even if you leave the workforce for a little while, keep your toe in, find some way to keep your network up, find some way to earn money so that you never end up in the position that her mother was in, where she was left by the wage earning husband and ended up pretty much in poverty and completely dependent on family members. So it's a really interesting book about women not doing that, finding ways. And I do think, like for myself with special needs kids, I didn't necessarily plan on not going back to work, but between my health and their health, it was really not an option to go work in an office anymore. So I think there are so many ways that we end up out of the regular workforce, and it is so exciting for us to have these options to be able to still earn income. So if a woman is in that situation right now, say she is just coming out of her maternity leave, for one reason or another, she doesn't want to go back to her old position, what do you offer? What kind of advice? How do you help a woman like that?
So I think the key, first of all, is working out what her skill set is at the moment and what she can offer. Because if she's able to do a job, unless it's things like working in retail where you have to be face-to-face.
Right.
There's a good chance that her job can be done at home or self-employed. So that's kind of key. And you have to consider all the factors like time. I know it's lovely to think that you can just work during naps, but the reality is you're going to need some dedicated childcare time. I just have 2 afternoons a week at the moment. I am looking for childcare for my son because I'm starting to need a bit more of that time as well. But it's important to take that into consideration because you don't want to be working so hard that you're working. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges. You don't want to be working so hard that you're on your phone the entire time that you're with your child because you're emails and replying to people and sending tweets and things like that. So it's all about having balance. So having a plan really, really helps. Not having ridiculously high expectations of yourself. And that sounds patronising, but what I mean is, I think as particularly as mums, we already pile enough guilt on ourselves. You don't need to add on huge expectations of how much you should be earning and what you should be doing and how much work you should be doing and how everybody else is getting ahead of you and blah, blah, blah. You don't need to add that on top of it. So I would say one of the things that I learned when I did work in sales is they said, under promise, over deliver. And I always suggest doing that to yourself. I will just do this one thing. And then you're more likely to do more because you've got the momentum. So just generally, don't think that you're suddenly going to become this amazing productive machine and everything's going to go smoothly, because, as you know, kids don't fit into smooth, perfect plans, do they? So it's important to have that understanding and not go in thinking that you're suddenly going to become this kind of six-figure earning entrepreneur, which is the buzzword that seems to be thrown around and gives a lot of pressure to people. You've got to work out what works for you, what works for your family, and what would make you all happy.
Yeah, I do cringe a little these days when I hear that phrase, the six-figure thing, just because I feel like so many people, and women in particular, and moms in particular, the reality is they're worried about mortgages and can we afford our kids' gymnastics lessons next month or not? And the idea of, aspiring to laptop lifestyle with six figures in the bank coming in, from every lunch or everything, it's not the reality for most people. I know that some people manage to do that, but I do think the discussion is more helpful for most people to have it at this level, at like, can you just work during naps or not? And I remember when my first daughter was born, we had 30 hours of labor and she just slept for like 3 days. And I remember the second or third day, I got up and I did go to my computer. I had brought files home and stuff. And I was like, dude, she sleeps all the time. This is going to be no problem. I can completely work from home. But I had a lot of damage, a lot of tearing, I lost blood. I bled quite a bit afterwards. And I was still kind of on the adrenaline. And it was a day or two until I realized just how much healing and sleep I needed. And by me trying to jump back in and start working 2 days after she was, I brought her home, I did myself a disservice by not just laying down and sleeping when she slept as much as I could. I mean, I couldn't actually sleep as much as she did because she slept so insanely much. It didn't last. That did not last. And then I tried to overdo it too soon. And I think what you're saying, be gentle and have very gentle expectations. Because I have seen some online entrepreneurs too basically try to take no maternity leave because they work for themselves, thinking, oh, well, I'll take a couple days off while I'm in the hospital. And then when I come back, I'll just do 1 or 2 clients a day.
Yeah. I mean, I had a very similar situation to you, very long 3-day labor and kind of a similar situation, and a sleeper and that adrenaline. Nobody told me about that adrenaline.
You feel like I should be up doing things, don't you?
Exactly. And I had a transfusion as well, so I was like buzzing. The first 6 weeks, you are just buzzing. You're like constantly buzzing, and they do sleep pretty much most of the time. And you think, this isn't that hard.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of like waking in the night, but I can work around this. And then I found at 6 weeks, I'd been working then, not full-time working at all, but just checking my emails and just doing the odd bit here and there for about 3 weeks. And 6 weeks, I hit a wall pretty hard. But then I kind of got over that. I would say after the first 6 months was much easier to work in than the last, how many were we up to? 8 months. Yeah. As soon as he started crawling, and then he walked quite soon before his first birthday, and the work got a lot harder to fit in. Because you're just exhausted. Like the times that you used to be like, I don't need to nap, and then suddenly they're walking and you need to nap because it's shattering. But then you learn, I think, as a mum, you learn to constantly adapt, and you learn that nothing's ever going to stay the same, never 1 week. So you kind of don't rely too much and don't plan too solidly. You accept there's a bit of flexibility. And I think online people are a lot more flexible to that as well, which is really nice. Like if you have to say, I'm really sorry, childcare issues, I'm going to have to postpone or change the date.
I think particularly within the circles we're in, which include a lot of moms working from home. I mean, there are definitely younger women who don't have children, but I feel like a lot of the people I interact with, and VAs, people that I've hired to help me with things, if they have a problem with their kids, I totally understand, because there are plenty of times where I'm like, actually, I need to go to a doctor's appointment now. Can you cancel everything for me?
Yeah, exactly. And I think everybody's unless you do it constantly, I think people are pretty understanding. So you almost need to accept that you are probably going to be that person that is occasionally going to have to flake out on things because kids come first. Okay. Yeah, and I feel like people are scared of saying that because they feel like it's unfeminist to say, or anti-feminist, I don't know what the term would be, to say, do you know what, I've got to put my kids first today. I can't be 100% on the business today. I've got to put my kids first, if they're ill or anything like that. And I feel like people feel they can't say that because they're letting down the side.
I feel like we're moving away from that a little. I feel like the pendulum definitely swung that way. I feel like 80s, power career women, and 90s were very much like, we can do exactly what men do, and we will just, the nannies take care of the kids, and we like trying to really distance themselves from the childcare because of wanting to be able to be the CEO and, all those glass ceilings we wanted to break. But I do feel like I've seen a lot of women within our generation kind of swing back and be like, I don't want to not know my kids. I do want to be there for them. And I don't know, because I'm in the special needs kids world, it's slightly removed from that because you have these sort of extreme things. So I've felt a little protected from judgment about me putting my kids first because sometimes it is, medical or difficult. But overall, I do feel like there's been this kind of swing back to women do want to take care of their kids, and more men do too. I feel like more and more fathers are standing up to say, yeah, we need a little paternity leave too.
Yeah, they are.
And companies are starting to open up to that. And in England, do you get paternity leave?
Yeah, it's pretty good here. It's not as good as
Sweden, Norway. Yeah. One of those Scandinavian countries, right?
Yeah, they're far ahead. But they in the last couple of years they brought it in so that you can now choose to share it, the maternity leave, or parental leave. So I've got a friend who she earns more than her partner, and he was quite keen to be a stay-at-home dad. So she did the first 6 months because of breastfeeding, things like that. And then the second, the rest of that maternity leave was paternity leave because he took it then. And it's fantastic. I know we're so lucky because over in I don't know what the situation is over sort of your side of the ocean.
Well, because of the Family Medical Leave Act, you can't lose your job for 6 weeks. You can get 6 weeks, but whether it's paid or not, that depends on the company. So you can't lose your job because of going to have a baby, because that's discrimination. But they don't have to hold your job for more than 6 weeks, and they don't have to pay. I know. Right. So when you were talking about that 6 week, because I do remember with the job that I'd had before pregnancy, I had trained someone to be there while I was on maternity leave, but I ended up having hyperemesis during pregnancy. So while I thought I would have my whole pregnancy and just leave right at the end, I got pregnant in August. By October, I was on anti-nausea medications that made me see double, so I couldn't actually drive. So I was really stuck at the house, and I was in and out of the hospital getting IVs. So I needed my whole pregnancy off for the most part. And then 6 weeks after I'd given birth, there was this moment of, what do I do? And I was like, I'm not in physical shape to go. And my daughter, I think it was around 4 months, we thought her pyloric valve had closed, and it was the signs of her white blood cell disorder, but we didn't know yet. So, we were in and out of the hospital for her too. And it was just like, 6 weeks is such a short time. It goes by so fast. I couldn't do it. Yeah, I couldn't go back after 6 weeks.
And I think, just going back to the pregnancy side as well, I think that's one piece of advice I would give everybody. If you're planning to have a family, don't wait until your pregnancy to save up. And because that's one thing I would say, it's worth having savings. And I had beautiful ideas of having passive income and have a nice saving pot. and I got very bad SPD. I don't know what you guys call it, but it's where your pelvis opens too early, and essentially it's very, very painful to walk. I was bedbound several weeks, and most of the last half of my pregnancy I was on crutches. And I was working with a client in London, and I couldn't, so I had to drop out of that job, and that was quite a big chunk of my income. And I know a lot of freelancers have found that they had planned this romantic idea of just typing away on through their pregnancy and saving money, but you don't know what's going to happen during your pregnancy, so I wouldn't wait to save until then. I know it's not always possible to do that.
It's not always planned.
Yeah, that's something, because I've seen it happen to so many freelancers, and they have ideas of doing all sorts of things in the last half of their pregnancy, and it can be very challenging.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing about being freelance. If you're already freelance, when you get pregnant, no one's required to give you paid maternity leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
You are the boss, so you have to make those plans ahead of time, figure out what you can and can't do, alert your clients if you have ongoing clients. And that can be challenging too, because then depending on what your financial situation is, you may or may not be able to weather it. It totally depends what you have going on. Over here, even, your insurance situation is much more difficult if you work for yourself. It's better thanks to Obamacare, but it's always been hard, if not having any kind of employer-sponsored medical insurance, which you guys don't have to worry about.
No,
yet.
We get, yeah.
So I heard since Brexit, you guys might be privatizing. Is that true? I hope that's true.
The suggestions are that the guy that looks after all of our NHS stuff is, I've got to be careful what I say, really, in case I'm giving out the wrong information, but the idea is that he's running it into the ground because, for example, the doctors, he wants to drastically reduce their income, basically.
I thought the whole thing with Brexit was all that money that was going to Europe would now go to NHS, right?
As soon as it happened, the day after, they pulled the plug on that, and they're like, "Oh no, yeah, we didn't
actually mean that." Yeah,
it could go to that. So I mean, I think the NHS is fantastic, and during my pregnancy, they could not do enough for me. They were brilliant, and yeah, it's a real shame that they are seeming to kind of run it into the ground in the hope that they can sell it off privately. But
did they already try that with the trains? And
yeah,
I don't know, the Thatcher years, didn't they sell off a bunch of stuff?
Our trains are, I used to get the train into London, and I was the second stop from the first one, and I could never get a seat, and they're hideous, the trains here. So yeah, not a great advert for it.
Yeah.
But,
I keep hoping we'll go more, when we had our whole Obamacare thing, I was really hoping it would go much further, because what I've learned since having kids over here, if you do have kids with special needs, if they can get on Medicaid, I wish we could all be on Medicaid, because prior to them actually getting that designation, all of the medical testing, all of the stuff, I would get multiple bills for, like, especially emergency room visits. I'd get a bill from the hospital. I'd get one from the anesthesiologist, one from the actual doctor. Like, I would get multiple bills, and I'd get really confused about what was what. And then they would say, for your convenience, we've submitted this to your insurance company, but if they don't pay, you're still responsible, or whatever. So then I would wait to hear what the insurance was going to pay, because we had individual family policy, because we're partially self-employed, mostly self-employed, and then with a family business. So it was not good. And we had high deductibles, and the insurance policy we had at the time when Tallulah was diagnosed with autism had an autism exclusion, which, again, thanks to Obamacare, you can no longer exclude things like autism, which obviously is not, it's not like the other things they exclude are like bariatric surgery and, elective surgeries. Like, autism is not an elective condition.
No, it's not.
But as soon as she got onto what we call here access in Arizona, it's the, our form of Medicaid, our state's Medicaid, I didn't see a single bill. Like, if she was referred to a specialist, it just got scheduled. Maybe we needed 14 days notice to do any kind of procedure in the hospital, but it just got scheduled. It happened, and it's beautiful. And I I really wish that we would expand Medicaid here in the US.
Well, I saw one thing that was a bill for a woman who just had a baby, and one of the charges was skin to skin time. You know, that skin to skin time you have straight after you have a baby. They charged for that because I don't know whether they had to be there or that's insane.
They probably kept her in the delivery room longer to let her have skin to skin time or something.
Apparently, I think it was a C-section, and they charge C-sections by the minute or something.
Oh, that could be because they have to have the surgery, the surgery room already, and
we have no idea how much anything costs here because we don't see it.
And it probably costs very different amounts because I do feel like we get overcharged for a lot of things because there's this whole sort of supply and demand and insurance companies involved. And I mean, medical costs. Actually, I have a few times seen bills for something like my daughter is tube fed. So we have this medical formula that keeps her alive. It's amino acid formula. So it's just absorbed. It doesn't have to be digested. And there was a time where I think we were going on a trip and I was afraid we would run out and they wouldn't fill the prescription earlier even though we were going away. So I went on Amazon and I ordered a case of it myself. And it was pretty expensive. It was a couple $100 to get 6 cans, and each can lasts for a couple of days. And, but when I saw, there was somewhere in the midst of all of it where I was like signing the new renewal for the year or whatever. And it was much more expensive through the Medicaid system, it looked like, because I remember thinking it was going to cost me more to buy it individually than it actually did. And I was like, that's weird. And my husband has a CPAP mask and he wanted to try a new one. And the bill we were getting from his ENT, they had to order it because they didn't have it in stock. Then he went on Amazon and looked and found it cheaper than what they were going to bill us for in there, which was, I was like, and we would never have known before Amazon existed. But at the same time, I was just like, okay, so we can buy medical supplies on Amazon and it's cheaper for us to do that than to go through our system with our doctors and use the prescriptions and everything.
That's crazy.
I know, it is crazy. But we're totally getting off topic. But still, if you're a freelancer in the US, these are some of the things you do need to think about is medical insurance. If you are going to have a baby, what kind of insurance do you need to have a baby? We switched our insurances after we had our second baby when I decided not to have any more to get a much cheaper one because I was so expensive as a woman in childbearing years, which, I mean, I am still within those years, but I've had some things done, so I'm not going to have babies anymore. And that totally changed it when we took all possible maternity-related stuff off of it, which I think is totally unfair too. I mean, I don't choose to be more expensive because of having babies. I know that we can have medical problems having babies, but at the same time, I find that very unfair.
That's awful. I mean, what if you are of that age, but you don't want to have, say, tubes tied or whatever, but you don't want to have kids as well, yeah. And they automatically build for a possible circumstance.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that was supposed to change with Obamacare. And I think it has gotten better. Again, we changed our insurance before. Let's see. We had Tallulah in 2007, Miffy in 2009. In 2010 was when we got the diagnosis, and we've kind of changed things since then. But Obamacare didn't kick in here until 2014. So luckily we did get the kids on access for their disabilities before that. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I mean, we have spent a small fortune on medical stuff in our family, and we definitely didn't plan for that. I feel like we were kind of lucky. We waited till we were older to have kids, and we did have some assets we could sell. But we sold a lot of assets for medical expenses, and a lot of families who go bankrupt in the U.S., it's down to medical expenses.
So in a way, even though freelancing seems to be more embraced over there, over here, it's a much more affordable option.
Probably in that way, in terms of medical expenses.
Yeah, because we don't have to consider that. Childcare is very expensive. So if I wanted to put him in 5 days a week, which I wouldn't. But if I did, it'd be about £1,300 a month, but it's particularly expensive where I am because I'm in sort of the home counties, which is a bit more of a pricey area, and we're just on the outskirts of London. But that's a big cost that people have to consider.
It is.
That's for a nursery. If you go for a childminder, it's quite a bit cheaper, but it's the right choice as well. So yeah, so I guess the costs are very different for what we have to do, because I don't know what the difference is in terms of what you have to deal with in terms of tax and accountants and things like that, and what we have to deal with.
Well, there's a self-employment tax, but it's basically to make up for the fact that you're not paying any payroll taxes. That, you know, over here you take out a payroll, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and then you know, your income-based tax too. So there's a general 15% self-employment tax usually, I believe, is what is applied over here. And then you also have your income bracket that you're in, that you pay taxes on. You know, and I was thinking, as far as child minding, I don't think that's particular to, I don't think we should add that on to freelance though, because if you were going back to an office, you would have, you know, after 6 weeks or 6 months, you would be paying for childcare in one way or another as well. Unless you're a family that can live on one income, almost everybody has to pay for childcare somehow.
Yeah, we have something in the UK called childcare vouchers, which is an optional scheme for employers, which my husband's company doesn't do, so it's not something that we can do.
That's unfortunate.
I think it basically, it's tax-free or something, but it basically means it reduced the cost. So you can choose to have childcare vouchers, and it comes out of your salary each month, but it means that you get much cheaper. And also here, from 3 years old, the child gets, I think it's 12 or 16 hours free childcare a week.
Where do you cash that in?
Where do we cash it in? Or?
Yeah, who do you go to? Like, does the government pay for that much childcare per week?
Yeah, I think the nurse will just tend to say, or the childminders say, I accept the free hours after 3 years old, and I think it just.
So they just report it to somebody?
I would imagine so. I think they probably just get it back. I don't know exactly how they do it, but I'd imagine they just get it back from the government, or it's.
You also let us know when your child gets to 3, how that works.
Yeah, well, another year.
It's still there.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something, and it's nice as well, because I think that's when a lot of freelancers, they kind of tread water until that point. If they've already been freelance, if they haven't, they're kind of building things up slowly, and then once they hit 3 years, suddenly they get a chunk of money back, because they're not paying out for that amount of childcare, or they can put their child in childcare. And I see a lot of freelancers hit the 3-year point, and suddenly their business goes like that.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I did think about that this last fall, you know, not just this fall that we're in right now, was the first time that Miffy was in full days of kindergarten at public school, which is paid for, because up to that point we always paid tuition for preschool. And it's similar to what you were talking about. The one thing that was more expensive for us was sending in one-on-one aid with her because of special needs. So, which has been a difficult thing with different preschools here. The kids get a few hours a week at public preschool if they do have a diagnosis of a disability. So they would get, I think it was 3 hours a day, 3 days a week that we could get that paid for, and we would send an aide there, and then to have her have more time with other kids and work on, you know, skills that she was behind in. We did do the other days too. So sometimes, especially in the summer when we were trying to find things for both kids, I was like, God, it's like we're paying college tuition right now. You know, so having, yeah. So that summer after not this last summer, but the summer before, you know, Tallulah was still able to do some preschool programs, even though she was quite a bit older than the average kid in there. They still accepted her because Miffy was going and they knew her and everything, and we could send the service dog and all that. But paying for that, when the summer ended and they both went to full days of school, that was really when I was like, okay, I think I can do a business at home now. I think I can, you know, I started my podcast and I started these different things because I had the time, and I also did feel some financial relief with not paying so much for both kids all the time.
And I think one of the challenges before that point is any free time that you get, you are, especially if you work from home, you're kind of stuck between, do I work? Do I clean the house, which looks like a bomb site? Because I've got, I think they refer to him as Spirited, but he's a very active little boy, and he ping pongs everywhere. So every time he goes down for a nap, there is a good 10-15 minutes when I have to just restore the house a little bit. And I think most freelancers I know with young children will say that housework will take a back seat to work. But there is that constant feeling of, I've got to do it all, and I think that's almost a pressure.
And get dinner on the table when your husband comes home if he's been at work all day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes he's just like, I want a nap too. It's time to lie down.
And I will. He naps twice a day. I'm lucky at the moment. I'm dreading the moment that he drops one of them. But I nap one of them, I work the other one. And then one thing that a friend of mine told me is, don't tidy or clean when they're asleep. Do that when they're awake, because they're either too young that they won't move anyway, so you can just do it quickly, or if they're old enough, they'll just follow you around a bit, and you can either get them involved, or you can get Peppa Pig on, and they'll be quiet for a little bit.
I did get my daughter a tiny set of brushes and some cleaning stuff that she had for a while, so I'd be like, come on, let's do it together, and we would watch Cinderella, and I'd be like, look, Princess is clean too.
It is, I mean, once they're at that age, it's quite nice. That's what I'm coming up to, where he will help out a little bit. But yeah, no, don't clean and don't tidy when they're when they're asleep, if you can. That's quite an important time, and you either need to spend it on you, so napping or doing something for you, or you work. And I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I do have to tidy when he's asleep, but generally I try not. So that's probably the best advice I was given to keep my sanity. It can be really challenging, and I know there are freelancers whose partners aren't as supportive as mine, and I know that can be really challenging. Or if you are doing it alone, that's incredibly challenging to do all the roles. That's amazingly challenging, but equally, I've seen that become such a good driver for people as well. Not a good driver, a powerful driver. But I just think we are living in a time where we can do so much online, and we don't have to work 8 hours a day. That kind of concept is going out now. And I know if you go back to a job, you do have to do those 8 hours. Whereas when you're freelance or you're self-employed, you have the flexibility to probably be more productive in a shorter period of time, so that you can have flexibility then to, when your child's awake, you can go to the park. But you've already done a decent amount of work that's going to support your side of the family, or whatever you need to do.
I saw an article recently. I think it was in Norway. They were talking about the 6-hour workday, because they said that they realized when they were tracking, I don't know if they were doing like time motion productivity studies or what, but when you stay for 8 hours, about 2 hours of it ends up being relatively unproductive. Whereas if you just stay for 6, you're as productive in that 6 hours as you were in the 8 hours, because you take a break, you need to stretch your legs, you have a cigarette if you smoke, or you
Chat to co-workers.
Yeah, or you just get distracted by things. Whereas if you have shorter, more focused periods of work, you get more done. And I feel that way too. Actually, this year I have a little less time than last year. Last year, Miffy still had a one-on-one aide, and we thought she was going to get a full-time position at school, and they managed to make her half an hour less than full-time, which meant that she didn't get her benefits. And instead of having 40 hours a week like she thought she would have, she ended up with, it was like 31.5 or 32.5, just enough to make her part-time, which I thought was very mean of them. And so she was trying to figure out if she needed to get another job or what she could do to actually have as much money as she thought she was going to. So we worked out her picking up and dropping off the kids for me, which gave me pretty much an extra 2 hours of working day. She was parking at school anyways, because she was there during the day. So it wasn't that much extra work for her to stop by our house and pick them up. But I would have to wait in those parent lines that snake out into the road. And actually, at the school where my kids are, it's a ridiculous parking situation and traffic situation with parents picking up and dropping off. So I would spend way more time doing it than she did. So it gave me extra work time on both ends of the day, but I don't have that this year. So I've had to kind of squeeze things into a tighter time frame. And there are days though where I look at my list, my calendar, and I'm like, oh, actually, I kind of got more done having less time. Like I know I just switched to my new 90-day planner because we're in our last quarter of the year. And like Monday, I was like, oh my gosh, I actually got a lot of things. I had a lot of things down, but I got a lot of things done. It's like,
There's I can't remember the name, but there's a theory that your work will always expand to fill the time that you allow for it. So
oh yeah,
if you have the 6 hours, your work will expand to fill that time. Whereas if you had 8 hours, it would take you 8 hours. And it's the same where if I've got 2 hours to do something, I don't think of it as 2 hours. I think I've got a 15-minute chunk to do this, 15-minute chunk to do this. Because if I think I've got all 2 hours, it's more laid back.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's go on. Sorry.
Oh, I almost had the name. It starts with a P, doesn't it? Pareto's? No.
Parkinson's theory.
Parkinson's. Okay. I think the other one I'm thinking is that 80-20.
Yeah, where you 20% of the
20% of his pea pods gave him 80% of his produce, and then if you just breed those 20% and get rid of the other 80, you'll end up with a much more productive crop. So like,
and you suddenly become much more laser focused on what's important. Like before, I might think, I'm going to faff about on Pinterest for an hour. That'll be productive. And now I'm like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes doing an image for Pinterest, bang it up, done. Let's do the next thing. And I'm always kind of now thinking with everything I do, is this profitable, or is this going to benefit my business, or is this going to grow my business? And if the answer is no, you kind of either get someone else to do it, especially using things like Fiverr and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You decide you don't need to do it anyway. Like with books, there are so many half-read books I've got now because I don't see the point in finishing a book I don't enjoy. So I think
totally
a lot more focused about what's important and what you need to do.
So I also do a lot of my books on Audible now. So that while I am waiting in that car line to pick up my kids, I've gotten through quite a few different podcasts and books now. I'm back on my book reading train, though I have also started carrying them around again, which for a long time I didn't, because I was just like, I never get to them. But you know what? I realized this is a long episode. So these things that we've been talking about, figuring out how to do your time, where your time is most efficient and effective for your business, are those the kind of things that you help women with in the freelance lifestyle community?
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at,
actually, I knew so because I'm in there, but I just thought I'd make the point.
Yeah, we look at we prioritize. So we do things like every single day you work out what your top 3 priorities are and your frog, and the frog is the thing that you don't want to do. So if you have to be big, it's based on the eat that frog theory.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to be a big ugly frog, do it first thing in the day, because otherwise you're going to dread it all day.
Mm-hmm. We'll link to the Eat That Frog, the Brian Tracy book, too, in case anyone's not familiar with the frog.
So it's such a good thing to look at, because then you look at your list and go, I really don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it now.
And then you feel so much better, don't you? All the rest of it.
And everything else afterwards is a breeze. Wednesdays we have Pitch That Wednesdays. So that's getting into the weekly habit of pitching so that you can quietly, non-scarily grow your business. And they can just be as small as updating your LinkedIn profile to going to a networking event and things like that. And one thing that is really key in the group is rewarding yourself, because one thing that freelancers often don't do, and I think it's called the Gestalt, I can never pronounce it, cycle, but one thing we don't do is complete that cycle by rewarding ourselves or acknowledging that we finished a task. And as mums, that's really important as well. You don't acknowledge when you've done something great, or you've had a great day, or you've done well, the best to your abilities and things like that. So I really encourage freelancers to recognise their achievements more, and that can help working out with priorities and things like that. But yeah, I do everything from limiting beliefs, NLP, boosting confidence, especially when it comes to networking. I do a lot around introverts, because I'm an introvert myself, and a lot of freelancers I know are introverts who are finally coming into their own, and finally feeling comfortable with what they're doing. So it's a wide variety of things, really.
Well, that sounds great. And we'll put a link to the community. Is there anything in particular that you're running right now for freelancers?
So there's a couple of different things we're looking at. If they sign up to the newsletter, they'll get a copy of my ebook, how to break the freelance feast or famine cycle, because I know that's a big problem for people. They worry about being out of money. So it goes through some tactics to make sure that your income is constantly coming in, but it also gives you access to the Facebook group and some other freebies that are going to be in there as well. And the other thing is we have 4 weeks of Freelance Habits, which is a free course all about building in small habits each week in a different area of your life each week, so that you can make very small changes that will have a big impact on your general life, your freelancing, your business, your finances, your health, all those kind of areas.
I have to explain that I have this clock back there that some Australians brought me when they stayed with me, and every hour has a different bird sound. So if you're hearing a bird sound right now, that's because it's noon here in Arizona and the birds are going off. And I also wanted to mention, for anyone listening to this on iTunes, I am now repurposing the video, because I'm sitting here talking to Emma. We're looking at each other's faces. We can laugh with each other and see what we're doing, but you may not be able to. If you want to go check it out, go to my go to my YouTube channel. That's what I was trying to say. Go to my YouTube channel and you get to see us talking to each other. And I'm doing a new challenge because I'm recording both All the Stuff videos and Financial Fluency on video now. I'm trying to do a different hairstyle on every single episode. So you'll get to see today's Alice in Wonderland braided headband hairstyle if you go over to the YouTube and look at the video. So thank you, Emma, so much for joining me. I have really enjoyed our talk. I actually would love to just keep talking about Brexit and politics and medical stuff for moms, but we'll have to go do that privately. I'll go see you in your group, because I'm also in Emma Cossey's group. So if you want to go join Freelance Lifestyle, we'll put some links both to the Facebook group or maybe just to your website so they can join the newsletter and get all the freebies and join the Facebook group. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much, Emma. I'll see you online. Bye.
Bye.